as an athlete, you had Christian examples of athletes. Mm-hmm. You had the Tim Tebows, and you've had others that I could be an athlete and still be a Christian. Like, how awesome is that? And with the video games, it was kind of like, I don't really know if I can do that. It's like a either or. And when you have now streamers who are living their faith online, being normal but different, you see the beauty of how you can reach people in that space. It's not just, I have to leave this part of me that enjoys video games at the door in order to be a disciple. Yeah. It's the both end. I know priests who have streamed. I know nuns even who have played Fortnite. And it's that I'm gonna go into the culture and use this thing to break some common ground with this generation.
Yeah, and speaking of examples, before we get kind of into the philosophy and anthropology behind all of this, something we talked about beforehand was actually the potential of a future saint, of somebody who personally loved video games. Maybe tell us a little bit about that person.
So towards the end of the book, I use the example of Blessed Carlo Acutis as a model for how do we navigate this third way forward, approaching technology as a whole, video games in particular, to the world. And so here's a young man who is a blessed, an Italian saint who died of aggressive leukemia age 15. And my wife and I recently had a 10-year anniversary trip to Italy, went to Rome. We took a day trip to Assisi. I did not realize he was buried there. And I was frantically finishing the edits on this book on that trip, on the train ride to Assisi, and did not realize until we were landing that he was buried there. And so actually got to go to the church where he is entombed, and you see the side of his casket is glass. So you see him in sweats and sneakers. And we went in January, so it was cold and there was no one there. And it was just this time to pray before him and to ask his intercession on this book, on all those who will read it, on our culture as a whole. And this rosary I actually put on top of his casket, just to pray for his intercession. And here's a guy who fiercely loved the Lord, and he also knew how to be with friends. The people in his school loved him, his classmates loved him. He wasn't a recluse in the corner. Mm-hmm. But he also, so he knew how to be with people, but he also knew how to put the Lord first. So he would play PlayStation. He loved Pikachu. He'd play with his dogs. He'd go on hikes. He just was that Renaissance young man of the whole thing, and would code. He would create websites, and he devoted a website to the Eucharistic. He created a website devoted to documenting Eucharistic miracles around the world that is still live today.
Wow.
That people can go and visit. And from his funeral, people were coming out of the woodwork for that, and people were already reporting miraculous events happening. So here's a young man that we can look to for his intercession, for his love of the Lord, and also how do I navigate this? To not just shut down discussion and gameplay of video games, but how do I find the virtuous middle way? He had a self-imposed limit of 1 hour a week. He would only play PlayStation for 1 hour a week, which is I can't even do that. That is amazing self-mastery. His mom didn't impose that. He did on himself. He just saw there's too much to do. Yeah. There's too much to do, and there's too much that Jesus wants me to do in life. I have to get after it. And he's like my little brother. I feel his intercession some days when I'm just tempted to find excuses. I'm too tired. I can't take my kids to daily mass. It's too far of a drive, whatever. I swear I feel him nudging sometimes, you can do it. You can do the hard thing. And I love who he has become for this generation and those to come of this millennial on the way to sainthood.
And I always think about, anytime I think about him, I always think that means there's probably going to be a third-class relic that's going to be like a PlayStation controller.
His controller could be a relic, yeah.
Which is pretty awesome. Yeah. I just think that's a really cool showing of how the church believes about the world.
And any of us.
Yes.
Because it's also tempting to be he was a special case.
Yes.
And he was, and yet it didn't take much. He just put Jesus first.
Yep.
And so you hear like Fulton Sheen and others who say it's not hard to be a saint. It's just doing the daily work towards it. And to what extent are we too shackled by our creature comforts and our leisure and our excuses? And I get it. There's a lot of distractions. I'm a tired dad in the world. And yet, how does Jesus want me to evangelize with the tools we've been given?
Mm-hmm. So now let's get into a little bit more of like the philosophy of what we're talking about here. Is there any books or philosophers in particular that you looked into whenever you were writing this book, but also coming up with kind of like what does this have to do with anthropology? Mm-hmm. How do we read humanity through this? So what kind of like philosophies were you able to find?
So it's such a new topic. There's not like we have 800 years of philosophers mulling
Thomas
about.
Aquinas was not talking about video.
He was not talking about Super Mario. Johann Huizinga was a Dutch historian. He wrote a book called Homo Ludens, Humans Gaming, or Humans Playing is how it could be translated, of just Joseph Pieper, same kind of thing, of leisure, the basis of culture. The importance of games and play to the human experience. And it's something that is always in our face, and yet we just kind of take it for granted. From kids just playing hacky sack to, baseball, like catch, to people like, oh, I don't play video games. Like, you don't play Candy Crush on your phone. Like, you don't play Tetris or Snake, like on your Razor. Like the whole, like, why would you, the esports thing. I was telling my dad, like, he's like, why would you watch someone else play games as he's watching like Sunday football? And I just kind of looked at the TV and I looked at him and I said, Dad, why would you watch someone else play a game? And it took him a while. He's like, oh, now I get it. Like, from like the ancient times through today, there is something about games, about play, that is part of being human. We're not just made for work and drudgery. There is something human about play. And it's not just about, well, we get life lessons because of play. Like, why are your kids in sports? Well, it's to teach them self-control and character. It's like, well, no, it's not it. It's the play is fun. Like, that's okay. Like, they may learn teamwork and self-mastery and how to take a loss. Like, those are the after effects. But you don't get in it to like, we're going to learn how to lose. That's why we're playing today. We want to play. And once you start like dissecting it, or like, the worst part of any board game is the reading of the rules to someone new. It's like, just your brain just starts kind of melting like a Salvador Dali painting. Like, that is the worst part for everyone, because we're just like, let's just play. I'll figure it out as I go. There is something human about play. And now extend that to video games. There is something very human about this. Even though the means may be this virtual device. Again, you watch people playing like Wii Sports together. It's very real. It's not real, but it is a real experience happening. There's real laughter. There's real anger. Yeah. You watch your sons playing Call of Duty. Like, there are real human emotions that are coming out. There is real joy. There is real frustration. There's real sense of purpose and mission. And like, you're in it. Like, when you're in it, like, you're locked into it. Yeah. And so there is something that's how I start the book. I take this kind of quick philosophical diversion, hopefully not to lose people, but just, it was a lot of fun to write about, and try to check out every book available on video games to try to, like, and again, there's not much on the philosophy side of things. Sure. But you get to see, like, whether it's like productivity and flow. For instance, like, there's a lot been written about flow and getting lost in a hobby, or just where it doesn't feel like practice anymore. The hours you have put into a discipline, painting, golf, etc., like, there's a point where like Tiger Woods just makes it look easy. Like, the musician that just knows like the piano, all of a sudden it doesn't look like they're even trying. The gymnast at the Olympics that just makes it look too easy, to the point you're like, oh, I could do that. Yeah. I couldn't. Video games offer that flow, and it's almost a shortcut to flow, because the amount of hours you'd have to be good, like the amount of hours you'd have to put into practice to be a Michael Jordan level. You can get that much quicker, and the feedback loop is much quicker in video games. So why is it hard to walk away sometimes? Why is it we just kind of get stuck and 1 hour becomes 3 very quickly? It's because there is some kind of state of flow and achievement and reward happening.